Christianity started in Alexandria with Pantius and Boetius, and unfortunately people speak about things and don't know it at all. Now, what makes the thing is the education system, because it took 40 years. These men set up a system that took 40 years from age 7 until age 47 of education, and then they were able to go out in charge of different sections, and they were called priests. The reason it worked so efficiently is because the oldest member was the head of the priesthood. A man became a priest and remained a priest until the age of 70. The reason is 70 because most men around 70 start to show decay in the mental capacity. You call it senility. And so to avoid things, the man remained, but only certain jobs and certain responsibilities he had. And that was instituted there. But he had to be circumcised at the 7th birthday. There were no exception. Every man and along the ancient Nile, from Egypt all the way to Buganda, what is today Uganda, had to be circumcised no later than 7 years of age, and definitely for the system. The child was then carried to Saqqara, and in Saqqara was the first place that education system started, the person who founded it being Imhotep. What the system developed was medicine, mathematics, science, engineering, and what you would call today the 7 liberal arts. It's from this point that the African projected the building of pyramids as a use of the farmers. The farmers built pyramids every year. They worked on the pyramids because the 4 months of farming was all that he could farm. What happened when the flood came, the inundation period? He couldn't farm, so he went up on the highland. On the highland, the pyramids were built. The religious institutions were built. All of the major buildings of Egypt, and they even placed the tombs of the pharaohs on the highland. Nothing was built in the lowland because the flood would flood it, and they had flood as much as 7 feet high. When you put the measure down, up to today, we would have had the flood were it not for the New High Dam. With all of that done, they then built a total of 91 pyramids throughout Egypt, mostly in the area starting from Giza near Cairo. By the way, there's no pyramid in Cairo. Stop saying the pyramid in Cairo. There isn't one. You mean Giza, and that's on the west side of the Nile, across from Cairo on the east side of the Nile. They built those pyramids, and each taking different dimension for the most part, and they run in an area about 10 miles from one to the last one farthest away. And those pyramids, most of them are, with our 62 of them, you can still see. The others have been totally destroyed by the incoming Arabs and the Christians. They use these pyramids and other structures, a kind of a ready-made place for getting stone. They would cut down. When Sudat was there, Sudat finally, for the sake of tourism and money for the cabinet, for the treasury, he issued an order barring everybody from taking away the stones from any of the shrines. So now it's illegal, punishable by long term to remove anything from any of the shrines. Thus, it became, because the Arabs who run the country, their religion is Islam. It's 60% of the 80% of the population of Egypt today are Muslim, including the indigenous people who they met there and became members of Islam. 20% of the population are Christian, the majority being Coptic Christians, and the rest of the people are of different religion, and a handful of people still worship the old worship of Amun and Amun-Ra. The people built, mummified the high people in different degrees. From the king, the mummification was done, and it took 75 days to mummify a pharaoh. When a pharaoh died, the first day he died, he is then washed, take a bath, he is given the oral opening of the mouth, and certain other rituals which I am not privy to tell you, that it goes through. And it takes 75 days. But let us take, for example, the pyramid of Khufu, which you call the Great Pyramid. That is the largest of all of them. By the way, there are 42 pyramids in Sudan. And they are still existing. They're prettier, but generally smaller. But the pharaoh is washed and he's prepared. But the pyramid of the Great Pyramid took 20 years to build. And the Great Pyramid was built in 2800 BC. Abraham, the first Jew, isn't born until about 1700 BC. If you're not born, you can't build anything. There isn't any record at all anywhere in all of Egypt, You would have seen, because in every pyramid, in every temple that exists, every pharaoh placed his history, everything he did, the battles he won, the battles he lost, everything is there. Ramesses II even placed when he had a pimple on his face. Everything is there, and nothing, there is not a single statement, and it would have been possible for Egypt to have had slavery for 400 years and none of the exhaustive writing indicate a word about slavery or a picture about slavery. There is pictures of everything. There is picture there of the Immaculate Conception, the virgin birth. Thank you. There's a picture of the Immaculate Conception, the virgin birth in a place called Abydos, the Holy Land. Abydos was called a holy land before Abraham was born. Therefore, how could the Jews make a holy land in Israel? And there's no Israel. Abydos is still there. When you go to Egypt, you can go there. You will see in one of the rooms in there, Isis, which you call Isis, her name is Aset. Horus, which you call Horus, his name is Heru. Asaru, which you call Horus, Osiris. You would see the bird sitting on the penis of Asaru, receiving the holy sperm for the bird, Isis, Aset, to become pregnant by the Immaculate Conception. Your book, Matthew, speak of a version of that, a copy, a plagiarized copy. Let's tell it like it is. All right. Talking about that when Joseph was coming through, he stopped and saw this woman, Mary. He betrothed her, came engaged, had to go and come back in 3 months, and she's well with child. And he asked, what happened? And someone said, the woman is with child. He said, thou art what? A whore. And he went home, and an angel of the Lord came by night and said, think not ill of the man, of the woman, for what she has in her is not of man, but of the Lord. But 4,000 years before that, the Lord had done it already. Isis became pregnant by immaculate conception, and you will see all the scenes in the stone, dug into the stone, painted in the stone, and you see the first resurrection had nothing to do with anybody dying. And the first resurrection was the story of Osiris. Osiris was killed by his brother Set, cut into 14 pieces. The 14 pieces were thrown symbolically around the world. One piece was thrown in the Nile, which was eaten by the Nile catfish. That's why I don't eat catfish. And Nubians don't eat catfish up to today, because the catfish ate Osiris' penis. And then there were no penis to make any children. Osiris, the good god, was murdered, and the story goes that his wife took the different gods, Tahuti and others, and they went and found the body, pieces of the body, put it back together, but there's no penis. So she had to go to God Ra, spoke to God Ra, gave him the penis, but the penis was dead. He was dead. And so with all the magic, of religion, the penis come back, which he had to hold up. When you go there, you see it. He held up the penis, she started it, and the baby came, and no more babies between the two of them. And you will see the whole scene. You wouldn't believe it, as natural as you could see. Including, you will see how the early Christians and Muslims, how they chart places out of the world. There may be people in here who have gone to Egypt by themselves, with other people or with me, and could tell you about these scenes. That started a major course in Egypt. Along with the young men, what was important that made Egypt important is that they went around the nation looking for young men to become priests. It was not the sons of the wealthy or anything, it was the sons of the people. If the priest saw this young man and he looked agile, he looked like he can do, he was conscripted, and of course the mother was not complaining because that was a great thing, and the son will become in 40 years. He stood there for 40 years, never going back in this system, and it was called a Grand Lodge. The first Grand Lodge was in Saqqara. The second Grand Lodge and last Grand Lodge was up in Waset. Waset name was changed. It was changed when the Greeks came in and finally eventually conquered the Egyptians, and they changed it to Thebes or Thebes. After they went out and the Arabs came, they changed it to the name now, Luxor, the city of windows. But what you've got is what got people in their problem today is the looks of the Egyptian today. If I came in here, you would expect me to expect that all of you would look like charcoal. But I know better, I'm not foolish. It's like the rumors people put out on me. They couldn't bribe me. I'm not bribable. I worked for the UN, and I turned on what was in 1940 and 50, 40,000 a year was a big salary. I turned that down because I didn't like the way they were treating my people. I'm not bribable, not for that, not money. Probably you could bribe me with a woman or something else, but I don't. Because I'm normal. I don't hide that. But what you have to understand is that the ancient Egyptian people, the priests in particular, at one time at least, were not susceptible to bribes. The people were guaranteed. They didn't get paid for their job. They went into community and the people supported them, gave them whatever they needed to live on. And these priests developed the society as best they could. But when they brought into act mathematics and different science, and started to build what other nations did not have, even nations within Africa right there along the Nile. Egypt went way beyond. But when the Egyptians, as I said, started to build, and particularly the stelas, when they built the first obelisk, the obelisk was built because Isis demanded that a symbol be built in memory of her husband's penis. And let me stop here and make this statement to you. There is no indecent word in the ancient language. And we in Africa refer to the sexual organs like we refer to your hand or something. I could refer to my woman's vagina as a hello. And if I said, if I were to ask her, did you wash your vagina this morning? I asked her, would you wash your vagina this morning? And there's nothing wrong with that. My woman comes and feed her child, take her breast out with everybody here in the house and feed the child. The breast is an instrument to feed. We don't go for a pablum and no nonsense like that. We feed the child and don't have to cover it with a piece of tablecloth big and smother the child. We feed. You see, we are not civilized. The Europeans didn't civilize us yet. And we don't want to be civilized. We don't have prostitution because where were the prostitutes going to get the John? The woman had to live home, either with her husband. If her husband died, she had to go back to her mother or her oldest son or what you could. There were no single people. So you got to understand, up to now, the majority of us does that. But there is prostitution now in the big cities. When they said prostitution is the oldest profession in the world, where? Not in Africa. It might have been anywhere else. You can take where else you want, but you got to prove it to me. But that in Africa it was. Now, when you see this development, they developed mathematics. They developed in the time of Hatshepsut. That will bring us to 1480 before the Common Era. Planned Parenthood. Hatshepsut, the daughter of Thutmose the first, had her scientists, her doctors develop a suppository to insert in her vagina to stop her from becoming pregnant because she had 4 children and decided it was causing her problem, and she had to be able to have sex and not get pregnant. They developed what is called the Ebers papyrus. It is a method, it looked like a Loudon scarf drop, and that they take the chemicals, put this base, and she could insert it in a vagina before pregnancy. About an hour, it melts, and it performs a base cover for not practice. Right now, Monsanto and others took it and developed what is called for the diaphragm, which they use to cover the diaphragm so that any spillage don't enter the vagina. That is going back to 1480. There was not a single European state yet, no Greece, because we don't have the state, the creation and the mythology about how Rome came about, but Remus and all that kind of stuff, and the wolf and taking care of this little boy. I mean, but let's go on. And that was not until before 1000 BC. And all of this is going on, you understand. All of the building, you should go and see the largest temple in the world. They built the largest temple, and that was done by the father of Ramesses II. His name was Setaiwan. Setaiwan died in 1298, the 19th dynasty. He built the beginning of what turned out to be the biggest temple in all of the world. You can take St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, St. John the Divine, the one in England, and the Vatican. Take them all together, put them side by side, and this will put them in this temple. You know, go and see for yourself. and then go back to Greece and go to Rome and see where they copy this. See where they copy the temple by Hatshepsut, the funerary temple by Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari. See where the Colosseum they're trying to make something like here at Karnak. That's the big temple I'm speaking about. All this done before they came into what is called civilization. And it must make a person like myself angry, and I am angry. I am not going to tell anybody that I take this lovingly and don't think about it. I am angry, pretty angry. But I don't take a gun to shoot nobody. Don't mean I wouldn't shoot somebody. But I haven't done it because I don't see the need for it. I can find my other way. I have killed people before, and I killed them for the West. Don't forget, you know, I was born in Ethiopia, but I came to the West in 1926, 76 years old. I came to the West in 1926 with my father to work in Brazil when Selassie overthrew the Lezasu government and we couldn't go back. We went to my mother's home in Puerto Rico, from Brazil to Cuba to Puerto Rico. And there I grew up, so I know. And when the war came, Second World War, I was, Roosevelt sent me a letter like he sent all kind of people to come and fight for my country. I finally found I had a country. And I had to go fight for a country I had. And I don't have, because I said I don't want to be buried by the government. I want nobody to put no cloth over my tomb, my coffin if they didn't eat me and the plane don't fall down over the sea. And think, I want nothing back. No bird, no nothing. Now, you understand that the rage in me is because none of this has been told to you. You haven't been told how they've developed the system with respect to what is called by the Greeks, what you come and you can't walk under a ladder, you can't do this. They tell you that a girl, if you got to believe, if you're born in this month, you can't marry a man that's born in another month. It's got to be some other month. And you can't come out of your house unless you read this horoscope. That's pure nonsense. Marry any man you want that to you look good, to you works out, to you makes sense. And to hell with the horoscope. It's a racket. I know I get some people here mad. But then I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to lecture to you. You feel the way you want. But it's a rat race. It's a piece of garbage. If it works, go out there and show me. It's strange that you tell me what to do, but you don't do it. We have to understand that when this science, when the Arabs came through and they came into Egypt, pick up what the Egyptians had, continue west in northwest Africa, and they came to Morocco, what's then Mauritania, with the Moors, M-A-U-E-R-S, before they became M-O-H-R-S, and other names, M-O-R-O, depending if you went in Spain, the Morro. Before any of that, when they were just plain Africans, when Dahia, the queen there, the African queen, fought the Arabs for 13 long years because she couldn't give up the North African religion. The same religion that Augustine will come later. Same religion that Augustine and others, the three nobles of the Christian church, would come. That the Moors carried into Spain in 711 what they had learned at going into Spain with the other Africans that lead them, including Tariq, General Tariq. And they're led by Admir. None of this is in your textbooks any place in the United States. There is not a single school, not a single university teaching any of this. They don't even teach about Imhotep. And they still teach that Hippocrates is the father of medicine. And now there is no excuse at all. They know the facts. They knew it long before, but at least they know that others know. They know that you know. And they continue to teach it. But we have, as it says, someday will come. There is a tomorrow. And nobody could stop tomorrow. Even the preachers that tell you about hellfire and all of that can't stop. About that hellfire, like I talk about it, the ancient Egyptians had a little a spigot thing that they would put in the grave, and they call it hellfire. And it's a place that they used to put you to test you. It got nothing to do with people going there and staying forever and ever and ever. And then when you burn and you cook, there's something stick you to see if you cook enough, and then throw some non-cooking stuff at you, and you start to cook again. Pure damn nonsense. I mean, people mad with me for bringing the eye, opening the eye to see that hell is a bottomless place full of fire and brimstone. If it's bottomless, how the hell is full? How could it be full of fire and brimstone and it's got no bottom? But let me continue. With the development of Egypt in the various areas that they are, and you notice that most of 80% of the obelisks that was copied from the first one are now in the Vatican. They were taken out of Egypt. The one in New York, Central Park, the Masons brought it there. And they call it Cleopatra's Needle. It is the obelisk of Thutmose IV. It's written on it. There's one in London, there's one in Paris, and many other states, but the vast majority is at the Vatican. And guess what happened? They now put a cross on each of them, as if Christianity had anything to do with this, and these are 4,100 years at least older than Christianity. You see, when we talk about the Africans, you assume that they're going to do something for you. But they're only going to do one thing for you: play another basketball game, get O.J. Simpson to run a thing. Well, by the way, since I said O.J. Simpson. No, I got to stop here. Because, you see, they couldn't fight me. And since I'm not purchasable, they got some little women here, I call them women for the want of another word, running around saying that I marry a white woman and live in France. Can you see me with a white girlfriend, much less a wife? I talk to white people, and they talk to me. We are good friends, and that's where it stopped. No, I have nothing against white people at all. But our cultures are different. Our values are different. And it stopped there. I don't even want a piece. No, I take some corned beef hash instead. I mean, you all may have a desire, but I don't even have a desire. I live in Puerto Rico for years. I lived in Puerto Rico 17 years with my mother down there and my father when I had to go from Brazil to Puerto Rico to live when the overthrow of Selassie, which Selassie was told is Ashu. What we African people have to understand, and I see on the TV young black men black men coming on TV and got 3 women pregnant on the TV. Not one is older than 18 years old. And they all think it's funny until this white man gets angry. I hope that he don't mistake me for one of them. But we have to understand life is not a joke. Life is stated to us what we have to do. And the reason I am so sure of what we have to do is the fact that I've done so much research in the past to know what we did and what has been denied. We not only did what I just told you about, but we could come in more modern time. Who built the first university in all of Europe? The University of Salamanca was built by the African Moors. It still stands in Salamanca in Spain. When all of them came from England to study mathematics in Spain, it was in front of African teachers, Africans who took on the name such as Alfonso Niño and Pietro Alonso Niño. The Niño family, this African family, was in charge of all shipping, whether it was for military or for civilian shipping. That was the man that carried Cristobal Colon, which you call Christopher Columbus. Carried him out. He was in charge. He was the admiral in charge of the ships. And Salem, Columbus was in charge of the expedition and sailed not one ship. That's why the Spaniards put him in jail where he died. He was interested in gold and exporting Christianity. We have to look and examine. When the Africans were brought eventually to the west, to the island of Hispaniola, that island is now called Haiti and Santo Domingo. That was in 1485. What do you think happened until 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia, or 1620? Where do you think the Africans were all this time? Just coming across the Atlantic till they reached America? Like hell. They went to the islands of the Caribbeans, lived there. Many of them became professional down there also, like they were professional home. As a matter of fact, the men who were coming on the ship were going to holiday, vacation, to England. They were all professionals, and one was a physician. When they were turned over here, because the boat had no food and things, and they were turned in for to get provisions, they were not made slaves. Isn't it strange they don't tell you that those first 13 were not made? They were not even made indentured workers. They worked, but they weren't indentured. It's after that they saw their work that they also became indentured. And now we're talking about the British system. There's still colonialism. It was not till years later that the British gonna fight themselves with one fool by the name of Adams. Slave fighting for his master. And nobody asked him, and got shot the right place where he sits. You see, you got to think and go back into history to find what we did and why today, from 1620 to 1996, we are still coming and asking why. Why, you ask why? You know the answer. It is not because you're black. A lady told me the other day, they don't like us because we're black. I said, no, they don't like you because they're white, not because you're black. There's nothing wrong with me. Like the other day, one of my little grandsons, because the children are all grown up now and they're gone, one of my little grandsons came and he says, Granddaddy, Laurel is the black sheep of the family. I said, yes, son, and equal you too. He said, I said, the black sheep of the family. I said, yes, and you too. He said, but how could I be the black sheep? I said, you ever seen yourself lately? Look in the mirror. He said, well, Granddaddy, I don't understand. I said, son, if you weren't black, you wouldn't be in this family. And therefore you are a black sheep. But Granddaddy, black sheep are bad. I said, it depends on who said it. The black sheep is more precious. There are very few of those. And you happen to be a good one. You're lucky to be the privilege. You came from a black sheep, that's your mama and your grandmama and all of them and a line of grandfathers. You see, it is what you say about yourself. It is not what others say about you. You determine what you're going to be. No man set for me his agenda that I would follow. I have my agenda, and when he says something, I match it against my little dictionary. Does it fit? Sometimes I don't even tell him that's not right. I just ignore him. Because you must have, a man gave you an agenda. Edward Wilmot Blyden, born in the Danish Caribbeans, the Virgin Islands, came here to go to college, but he couldn't enter because they didn't have any room for people of his profession. It had already been taken. He wanted to be an anthropologist, and blacks were not getting degrees in Egyptology. No school was teaching a black to decide what race is. And so he left and went to Liberia and became eventually the president of the College of Liberia. Not only that, he's the man that wrote Christianity, Islam, and the Negro Race. And he said